Aloha. Thank you for joining us for another edition of BYU Education Week's beautiful series, helping us to just be better. And today we're going to get to unpack Hawaiian values with Mahalohana, right? So we're going to look to Mahalohana, and in this word, we're going to be able to discover the true meaning of aloha. So before we kind of dive in, I'd like to tell you a little story. Back when I was 19, I remember we were having a family reunion on the island of Kauai up in Kokei. And beautiful place, just looking down at everything. And I remember we were there with all of our ohana. And it was about 8 o'clock in the morning. And we're all just kind of playing, and everybody's got their own little groups. People were just finishing eating breakfast and cooking and doing all this stuff. All the family was all over. We had this huge cabin up there, and next thing you know, I looked out. We had this big field, and there was a gentleman that was walking towards us. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, as you see, we're high up in the mountains. This guy's walking towards us, and he looks a little disheveled. He's, he looks dirty, and he keeps walking towards us. And now he's a good-sized guy. He's good sized enough to make you be a little worried because you've got your family there. So I was still only a 19-year-old kid, but I was kind of looking a little concerned. Next thing you know, I look to the back, and the matriarch of our family comes out. Pupu comes out, straight out of the cabin, and she's walking towards this gentleman. And she stops with this space in between them. And everybody's watching. Now, this guy is about 6'2", 250 pounds, big guy. My auntie is all of 5'0", and she's standing there looking at him in the eyes. All of the cousins and uncles are wondering what's going on. The man looks at my auntie, and he does this. My auntie looks at him. She does that. Come with me. She turns around, and she starts walking to the cabin. The man starts following her. She turns around to all of us. Hey, you guys, go make some food. Go set the table. Now, we have tables and chairs and all this stuff outside, but she takes this man into the cabin where all of our stuff is, all of our okana, all of our family is inside there. And she takes them onto the table, and she sits him down. They bring a plate out for him, and it's got all this food. She grabs it, she puts more, sits him down, and gives him his food. All of the cousins and uncles were watching. We're kind of worried, making sure that this guy doesn't do anything crazy. My auntie sits down right next to him. Not a word is spoken. The man just eats. This goes on for a little while. Eventually, all the men kind of subside. And after it was done, she went and made a plate for him to take, and he was off on his way. He turned around as he was leaving, and he said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." And my auntie just looked at him. Aloha, ahui ho, until we meet again. It was such a beautiful sight. Fast forward. A few days later, I was with my auntie, and I asked her, I was like, "Auntie, what was that? How did that come about? What was all of that interaction?" And she looked at me, and she goes, "Boy, when you see somebody that needs, you give. That's who we are. That's aloha." And I never forgot that. I never forgot that silent interaction between this man and Pupu. I never forgot the way that she just served. She didn't know who this person was. And it helped me to think about that scripture in John 21:16. If you love me, feed my sheep. This is the foundation of what has built me to embrace aloha in my life. As an adult, it allows me to not only be aloha, but share aloha. And that's really where I want to kind of bring this to pass, right? I want us to be able to understand that these types of events can shape who we are. And now, mind you, I don't go around telling you, oh, aloha, how's it? This, I used to, mind you, when I was young. But it's not about that, okay? So let's kind of dig a little deeper, right? Let's look at this and ask ourselves, what is aloha? Right? I mean, it's a simple question, right? I mean, we have to assume that not everybody understands what is aloha. It's kind of unbelievable, but it's a true statement, right? So let's look at it, right? On its surface, aloha in Hawaii is this greeting. It means hello, goodbye, right? Right here. This is my ohana right here, and right there. That's aloha. Aloha, how's it, right? That's how it is. But another meaning for aloha is love. Okay? It's love. And that's really where it starts to impact us in a different way. Like, look at this. Right here, this is my keiki, okay? This is my children, right? This right here is the essence of love, right? Now, whether that be for love of siblings, love of family, or just love of shave ice, right? I think that right there allows us to really understand that love takes its many forms, okay? But that's where we need to look at aloha. Okay? We need to look at aloha. So, backing up, looking at this picture here, right? I mean, this right here is the word aloha, right? The word aloha, it comes with many meanings, right? Aloha is more than a greeting. The true meaning of aloha, this is the spiritual side of it, right? This is the spirit of this beautiful word, right? It emits this deeper expression of our relationship to ourselves, to our family, to our community, to our friends, to just those around us, even the strangers, right? That right there allows us to be able to connect with the inner meaning of aloha, and that is where the true meaning of aloha is. This allows us to really kind of embrace that. It's this mindset. It's this way of aloha. It's not just a word. It's not just a phrase. It's not just a greeting, right? To be in aloha is to be in the presence of life, to share your innermost essence, okay? And it's being open and honest. Aloha is accepting others for who they are and really showing dignity and respect. That right there is a sign of aloha. It's the art and the spirit of giving and receiving. So, let's look at aloha and do what my ancestors taught us. Break down the word. So we see the beginning part of the word is alo. It means front, face, presence. There's a phrase, he alo, ahe alo. This means, let's talk, face to face, you and I. Okay? So when we say aloha, we are saying that we are connected. We are face to face with the ha, the breath, the life, the essence, right? So now, aloha, taking it in its simple form, hello, goodbye, love. But when you break it down like what we just did, that's where we start to get into this idea that the kauna, right? This is the kauna, okay? And you got to remember that word, kauna, because that's something that we're going to be talking about in this series, which is the deeper meaning, okay? So the kauna, the deeper meaning, is to be connected and in the presence of divine breath. That is how people are made whole, right? It's to give and not expect anything in return. It's to receive and not forget to give back, okay? You give and you receive without thinking. It just happens, right? It's like breathing. It just happens, right? I mean, you don't just take a breath and it's yours. You take a breath and you give it back, right? They have that phrase, it takes your breath away. Yeah, but you got to give it back. You can't keep them. Okay? So the spirit of this ability to think that I am connecting with you, that I am connecting face to face, that I am bringing this together with your life, your divinity, it starts to really make you think. Okay? Now, I want to take it a little step further. How many of you guys know that there is an Aloha Spirit law? A real law. Okay? Only in Hawaii they do this kind of stuff. Okay? But it really makes sense. So it's found in the Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 5-7.5. This is true. This is real. Okay? And this was started back in the 70s, where they had this gathering of a lot of these Hawaii dignitaries, mostly men, They think they know everything and stuff. I mean, we really think that we got a handle on knowledge and understanding. But it was at this Hawaii 2000 conference. And, I mean, I was still baby, okay? But they got together to talk about the past, the present, and the future of Hawaii. And there was a lot of pilikia, a lot of trouble, a lot of, differences of opinions. Because a lot was going on. People was upset and sad and mad about Vietnam and about politics and all this upheaval that was going on, not only in Hawaii, but around the world. And they were getting together to be able to say, how can we make Hawaii pono, better, balanced? And it was at this meeting that Auntie Pilahi Paki, she stood up in front of all of these people and she made a plea, right? She gave this emotional speech about the Aloha Spirit and how important it was. And she talked about how she believed that in the 21st century, that our hurting world would come to Hawaii to seek out answers, to help itself. And the answer that we need to give is aloha. So what she did was she said that, this aloha spirit, it's unique. It's a spiritual and cultural code of Hawaii that is unifying rather than divisive. She described aloha in the way that people should treat one another. So she also said that the way of aloha, and this is really interesting. I mean, you think about this. Before you can have aloha, you must do aloha. You cannot walk into a room and expect aloha to be there. You got to bring aloha with you. Okay? So I remember there was this one time I was going through high school, and I didn't leave Hawaii until I was in high school for sports. We didn't have money. We didn't have a lot of money and stuff like that, so we couldn't. Like everything we had, my parents sacrificed so much for us to go to private school, just because they wanted something better for us. So we didn't have access. But when we did go to the mainland, it was like this unbelievable thing. And it wasn't even with our family. It was because of sports. But I remember the first time I went up, a lot of my family and friends, they would say, hey, you're going to LA, be careful. Those buggers, they crazy. They mean. Everybody's just so mean up there. And anytime I went to the mainland, the continental U.S., it was always that same conversation that those people up there, they're not like us. They mean. Okay? Unfortunately, I forgot what they said. So when I came up here to play sports and to work and do different things in the continental U.S., I was never greeted with anything but love. And my mom told me, boy, it's because you got aloha here. People give what they get. If you go up there feeling like you, hey, maka maka, and you think you're better than everybody else, then they're going to treat you like that. They're going to treat you with this standoff, this guarded position. But if you go over there with aloha, they're going to repeat that. and they're going to give it back to you. So this idea of before you can have aloha, you must do aloha. It's because aloha isn't just a word. It's not a thing. It's not something that you can teach. It's something that you must be. It's something you must do. It's an action word. And I can tell you, yeah, I get people that's crazy, but that's because it's them, right? But all the times that I've traveled and spoken all around this country, I've only had good spirit between me and the person and the people and the community. So you bring aloha. Before you can have aloha, you must do aloha. Before you can be aloha, you must choose aloha. Before you can choose aloha, you must have the power to choose. And that was kind of interesting, right? But then, before you can have the power to choose, you must be the source of power. So you cannot leave that to somebody else. You cannot sit there and say, oh, but they never have aloha, so, I'm not going to give aloha. Really? I walk into those situations a lot. Where you walking in and somebody just had a bad day. They was late for work, spilled a coffee, something's going on in their life where they're having a bad day. But I still got to meet with them. But that doesn't mean that they have to stay that way. That doesn't mean that I cannot help change that. Light and darkness cannot occupy the same space. If light comes into a space of darkness, it allows it to permeate itself. Now, the final thought is, before you can be the source of power, you must be conscious of the source. And that was interesting. Okay? That was interesting. Now you got to remember this, okay? Because we're going to come back to this, okay? Before you can be the source of the power, you must be conscious of the source. This is what Auntie Pilahi Paki was talking about when she talked about the way of aloha. Now, going back to the law, okay? If we go back to the law, we see this one line over here, right? You see it's kind of bold. In there it says, aloha means to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. Now this was a line that was borrowed from our late Queen Lili'uokalani. Now, Auntie Pilahi brought this into the spirit law. And I think it's worth knowing that this isn't just a haphazard phrase that was thrown out, because our queen was connected, not only to her people, but to that higher source. So let's look at what the queen actually said. Okay, her words in full was this: to gain the kingdom of heaven is to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. That is aloha. All things in this world are two. In heaven, there is but one. It's powerful, right? So this right here was, to me, when I first read the law, it was kind of weird for me to think, to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. Now, who goes around saying that I know everything? I know the unknowable, right? That's a pretty bold statement. It's a bold statement, right? But I'd like to suggest this, okay? The queen was connected to her people, to herself, and to that higher source. And what she was saying is that if you know the source, if you connect with the source, if you know God, you know the unknowable. Why? Because God is all-knowing. The power of this law is to know the unknowable, to be connected to the thing that is greater than us. So when we look back at this law, we start to remember and think about that, and we see the context. Aloha means to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about in this law, which is kind of also interesting, and this one made me scratch my head a little bit, is this, right? So another interesting point here is, according to this law, okay, if you look at this bottom part, all Hawaii citizens and government officials must conduct themselves with aloha. Crazy, huh? Now, it's virtually impossible, right, to enforce this Aloha Spirit law. Would you agree? I mean, it's hard to think. How do you tell somebody, hey, bro, you know what? You're not living in spirit of aloha, so I'm gonna put you in jail, or I'm gonna give you a ticket. But you know when it comes around, and I got to share with you this story that highlights how this law can make things pono, right? Okay, so in 2012, we had the protocol officer for the then Hawaii governor, Neil Abercrombie. Okay, and she was standing at the Honolulu International Airport on the tarmac. Okay, and she was waiting the arrival of this really high-ranking dignitary from the People's Republic of China, and the plane landed, and nobody came out. The VIP, the very important person, just kind of didn't come out. And after a few long, awkward minutes, this aide appeared, and she explained that there would be no meeting. Much to the disappointment of Beijing, our governor of Hawaii had met with the Dalai Lama 2 months prior. The VIP didn't want to meet with our governor because of that. So, thinking quickly, this protocol officer, she responded in the best Mandarin that she could, and she said, the governor of Hawaii always meets with every world leader because Hawaii is the Aloha state, and our laws require us to extend aloha to everyone. The aide was unimpressed. They just said, sorry, there's no meeting. We can't do this. But later, the aide called back, and she said that after she researched this Aloha Spirit law, that they understood that the governor was legally obligated to show aloha. She then asked if our governor would be willing to meet. Now, this friendly meeting, it resulted in an annual holiday gift exchange between Beijing and Honolulu that endures today. Believe it or not, our gift, our way of showing our aloha is a box of macadamia nut chocolates. So, Auntie Pilahi, she knew, you give a little bit of sweets, a little bit of aloha, and together with some chocolate-covered macadamia nuts and the Aloha Spirit, we can kind of help instigate a move towards world peace. Funny, huh? So, the spirit of aloha is this law. And in this law, she broke down every letter to reflect a value in the Hawaiian language. So it is a law, but when we break down these words, the words are values, and that's not what's important. What's important is the behavior, right? I mean, we know a lot of these guys, they just talk, right? I mean, their conversations, their words have no substance. So that's why when we talk about this, right, we talk about akahai. It means kindness. But kindness is just that. What we want is we want you to be able to be this way, okay? And that's what's important, right? So that's the power. And what we also understand is that with this language, anytime you utter the sounds of aloha and any of the words within the Hawaiian language, you're calling upon the spirit of this word, the energy of this word. And that's what we have to look at here, right? So and I won't go through all of them, but I want to do what we did, and you can do this with any Hawaiian word, okay? But you can break apart the word, right? So let's look at the first one, right? Okay, akahai, right? Aka, right? That means shadow. That means the string like a web, okay? It's what connects you and me, right? But aka is not just a shadow, it's also a mirror. So aka, right? This mirror, this shadow, this connection. Ha. Remember we talked about that? In aloha, the breath, the life, the essence, right? I am, the divine breath. Okay? So what this is saying is to mirror or to be shadow or to be connected with the divine breath of God. Now, imagine if you live like that. Imagine if you lived with that attitude. How do you think it would be to be kind? What kind of kind would you be if you had that attitude where you are connected to, shadowing, mirroring that divine breath of God, right? So this is the kindness that comes from within, right? Just by following the breath, the spirit, the essence of divinity. That's the power of aloha. Now, every single one of these words, akahai, lokahi, meaning unity, which is expressed in harmony, right? Akahai, meaning kindness, to be expressed with tenderness. Lokahi, meaning unity. This is to be expressed with harmony. Olu olu, meaning agreeable. This is to be expressed with pleasantness. Ha'aha'a, humility. This is to be expressed with modesty. And the last, ahonui, patience. This is to be expressed with perseverance. When we persevere, that's what helps us to be able to express the spirit of aloha. Now, I kind of want to talk about something from an outward form, and it's necessary because times have changed. Hey, this is my ohana, and this is back up in Kauai. And we got the shaka. Now, this is why this is important. When I was young, my first job out of high school was working for Aloha Airlines. I used to bring in the airplanes and welcome all of the guests from the continental United States and beyond. And I was just Mr. Aloha. Aloha, everybody, welcome, thank you for coming to Hawaii, blah, 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 all this type of stuff, right? It was just, and in that spirit, I was it. Everybody called me Mr. Aloha. My family, my friends, my coworkers, everybody. And with that, I used to hug and kiss everybody. Till today, even the missionaries sit there and say, you should know that Brother Perkins does not shake hands. He just goes in and just gives it a hug, right? So that's who I am, okay? But you gotta be doing that to everybody, especially nowadays, especially with COVID, right? My wife is a nurse. She don't like me kissing and hugging everybody because she's like, babe, we're gonna have to sanitize your whole body because of this. So that's where the shaka comes in. Now, do you realize what the shaka is? Okay, so I got to tell you the story about the shaka. So, this goes all the way back to Uncle Hamanakalili. Okay, he was this fisherman who lived on the island of Oahu in La'i. And he was working at the sugar mill, and one day he ended up had even an accident at the Kahuku sugar mill, and it cut off his 3 middle fingers. Gone. Aole, gone. So this is all he had left. And because of this, the sugar mill went and moved his job to be a security guard to watch the trains, right, that moved the sugarcane back and forth from Sunset Beach to Kaava. Okay, and it was interesting because this is trains filled with sugarcane. And if you've ever experienced sugarcane, it tastes good, right? I mean, they go ahead and do what their processing is to be able to create the sugar. But if you take the sugarcane in and of itself and you just buy it, I mean, the kids used to love this stuff. This was like candy, right? I mean, we didn't have the stores that we did back then with all this candy. So kids being able to jump and grab and aihui and steal some of the sugarcane, that was their life. So Uncle Hamana, his job was to keep people off the train. But he only had 2 fingers. So he would be waving people away like, hey, kids, you guys got to get away. It's dangerous, or no steal, no do all this kind of stuff with his 2 fingers because he's trying to keep people away. So that's where it kind of first started. Everybody used to make fun of him, and then eventually the kids would actually use that as their sign. When he wasn't working, all the kids would be like, okay, Uncle not working, now we can go. Well, that's when we should go and attack the train so we can go get our goodies, okay? But Uncle Hamana, so that's the story of where the sign came in. But what about the word, shaka, right? I mean, that's not one Hawaiian word, I can tell you that. Shaka was, Uncle Hamana, he was a fisherman. And he used to always play with these kids, like just funny guy and stuff. And he used to say that one of the things he used to tell the kids was when shark would bite off his fingers. And he said when hammerhead shark bit it off. So he would play around with these kids and he would say, like a hammerhead shark, this is shark eyes, look, the shark eye, the shark eyes, shark eyes of a hammerhead shark. So as a Hawaiian who just is playing around with the kids, the shark eye. And that's where shaka originated from. So the reason why I tell you guys this is because this leads me into the main reason why I wanted to share this at BYU Education Week. When I last year when me and my wife came to BYU Education Week, it's great. I mean, you're talking all the best teachers come in here and converging at this beautiful campus here in Provo, Utah. And you just get filled with all of them. I mean, like it's a fire hose just coming with a lot of mana'o, teachings, understandings. And last year I remember telling my wife, babe, this would be kind of cool if somebody would teach something about Hawaii. I think people would come. Because it would be fun. Break up the day a little bit, kind of like when you go to school, right? That's what Education Week is like immersing us old people back into school mode. And it's fun for a week. But like anything else, you probably like cut class or go find something that's fun. So somebody should teach about Hawaii. And my wife said, that's a great idea. Maybe you should do it. Hence I'm here. But I didn't want to teach about Hawaii and aloha just to tell you about what aloha is, just to tell you about what shaka is, right? That's not the meaning of this. There's no substance in it. There's nothing to take forward. My children literally said, Dad, what is your objective? Why are you going to tell these people about aloha? We need to figure out a challenge. We need to have them do something. What is your objective, Dad? So in speaking and teaching here at BYU, at this Education Week, my number one goal, in person, talking to all of these people that have come, my number one goal was to have people walking around on this campus saying aloha to each other. That is a physical, tangible result that I was hoping to get. Can you imagine people walking around this campus? This is in Hawaii. If you was in Hawaii, of course you're going to see people. Aloha, aloha, how's it? Aloha, aloha. But guess what? Some of that aloha is fabricated. Some of that aloha is just kind of like, aloha, because that's what I'm supposed to say. What I was hoping to do here is to let people understand the essence of what aloha is and say, now go out and share this with the world. Go out and start using this because it's a commitment. When you say aloha to somebody, it's a commitment. This is not just, how's it? How are you? To say aloha is acknowledging our connection. You and I, the connection to the divinity. It's a commitment that I am not going to ruin and harm the air that you are in, and I'm going to make sure that this air between us is always good. And if you can acknowledge that back to me, can you imagine that respect? That right there becomes beautiful. In the Hawaii visitor industry, they have the 5, 10, 15 rule. And I almost feel bad for saying this, but I think some of you know what I'm talking about. The 5, 10, 15 rule in the visitor industry in Hawaii is when you see somebody 15 feet away, you make sure you take notice. When they come 10 feet away, you straighten up, get ready. 5 feet away, aloha, welcome, thank you for coming to our beautiful islands. Nice to see you. How can we help you? Which is cool. It's cool. But when they turn around and they go 10 feet away, when they go 15 away, crazy guy. I don't even bother. That's not the Aloha Spirit. That's the manufactured aloha. The aloha that we're talking about right now, it's a commitment. It's a commitment between me and you. It's a commitment to all of us around. It's the idea that I am going to make you better than when I first met you or when you first met me. I'm going to make this place better. I'm going to leave things better. That right there is aloha. So this aloha challenge that we talked about is allowing yourself to go beyond the 5, 10, 15. Right? Because most people, they wait till they get closer to say aloha. Guess what? You can follow me for a day. I can see somebody 100 yards away from me. And I see them. And all I got to do is that. I don't even have to say a word. And they know I see you, I recognize you, I know you. My aloha is coming to you. Sometimes we're able to connect face to face and be able to exchange that breath, that ha. But even then, they know the commitment is there. My children have undertaken this challenge, this aloha challenge. And my daughter actually put together this journal. And like she's full on, she's like, Dad, I gotta do this. So she put together this journal called Aloha Around the World. And the idea is, how can we recognize it if we don't document it? Because we recognize it and it goes away, but when we recognize it and document it, it allows it to stay with us. It can go back later. So in this journal, my daughter, she put together this idea that every day she's writing down where she has seen aloha, where she has expressed aloha, and it has come back. What I am doing here in front of all of our people that I will be teaching, the challenge is count how many times you say aloha. And more importantly, count how many times they say aloha back. Remember, aloha is a commitment. If you cannot make that commitment, then just say hi. Simple. Simple. Okay? So, I come from a very special place, and it's called Hawaii. And the meaning guides and directs our behavior. I come from a very special place, and it's called Hawaii. And the meaning guides us and directs our behavior. The word ha, which means breath, life, the essence, the space, the atmosphere. This is ha. It's the first breath you take when you come into this planet. It's the last thing you give when you leave. And in between the first breath and the last breath, you never own it. It is the vai, the water that we drink. It's in and within each of us. It's the spiritual water that guides us daily. It's what connects us to one another. It's the E, the spiritual force, the creative energy that some of us would call God or the cosmos or universe or nature, right? It allows us to recognize one another before we've introduced ourselves or shared our backgrounds. You know, that chicken skin that you feel. The Ha, the Vai, and the E. It is the mission statement that guides us that says, care for the air, the water, and the spirit of the land. Watch what you eat, watch what you serve others, and how you treat your friends and your places. Leave the people and places better than how you found them or how they found you. Our kuleana, our responsibility, is to do just that. To care for the air, the water, and the spirit of the land for ourselves and for others, for the present as well as for the future, as we honor the ancestors of our past. This is Hawaii. This is who we are. This is Aloha. Until we meet again, ahui ho. Aloha.